How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fishing Canada Live with Ange and Pete.
Yes.
And you have got the post-turkey. Speaking of turkeys, you and I said Ange and Pete, right? Post-turkey edition of Fishing Canada Live.
Not bad, eh? It's all you turkey hunters wish you could do that.
Where's a gun when you want it?
That's no little calls in there, none of that. They just take me. All you got to do is hire me, all you turkey hunters, and I'll go out there for a very nice, neat price, and I'll call your birds in for you. You can shoot them.
No, don't worry, they won't. How are the usuals on there? I see everybody's there. Calvin, Tim, all the usual suspects.
Oh, I did get a look. I'm looking on the wrong side there. I'm looking on our private chat.
You can't do that. You got to look at the right side.
There's Tim Sturgeon. Tim got some kind of a job. I don't know if it was a promotion or a movement today. Anyways, in his LinkedIn, give us announcements.
Is that Noxie? Is that Greg Noxie on there?
Noxie, what's up, buddy?
And, like I said, all the usual suspects. Great program, by the way. I don't know if you know of it. I don't know. What is that you're doing? Are you scratching yourself?
What are you talking about?
Oh, all right. Anyways, great program for all of you this evening. We have a very, very special guest that'll be joining us a little later on. Of course, the doc will be here for a little fish talk.
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't he be?
Very interesting subject tonight, for sure. Again, as usual.
As usual. First of all, let's talk about the contests. I must mention fishingcanada.com. It's coming to a close. Not that the contests are coming to a close, but we're getting to the end of the boat motor trailer portion of the contest, which will be drawn on the 15th of December. And still plenty of time, though, to get ballots in. Every 24 hours, you can go to fishingcanada.com, enter that contest. While you are there, what else should they do, Mr. Bowman?
They should go to, see that little word there, folks?
There it is.
Right. There it is, right there. And if you want to win for absolutely free a 2.5 horsepower Mercury outboard motor, you might want to just get into that contest as well. Because what's for free anymore, Angela? What is for free anymore? Like, is anything? Your whiskey in the weekend, was it free? No, it wasn't free at all, was it? It was free to your guests, maybe if you had guests, but it was.
Yeah. Not
so definitely. Definitely. And just to let, whoa, spider. We got spiders in the office.
What the hell are you doing?
I killed a spider.
Can you settle down? Did you not have your Ritalin this morning?
I am like a ninja. Okay. If anything moves in this room around me right now, it's gone. It's dead. It's gone. Anyways, I think I saw up front too we procured some new prizes too. Did we not? I saw something at the front door. There's a stack of boxes there and I'm hoping there's some more prizes.
There's some goodies. They're all starting to get shipped in. We've got all kinds of goodies that we're going to start very soon. We don't want to confuse the issue though, as we're writing down the Mercury and the Princecraft thing. I don't want to confuse anybody.
Yeah.
So we're kind of easing them in, but we got a plethora of wonderful prizes that are going to be up for grabs on fishingcanada.com. All, of course, free of charge. All you need to do is give us a little bit of your time. Approximately 1 minute and 58 seconds, I'm told.
Wow.
Is what you need to do.
Is that for both contests or just for one?
Both.
So that's a
minute. You're already there, right?
Yeah. I mean, who can get that much value for a minute, for 60 seconds a pop? It just doesn't happen anywhere else. But here. That's correct.
We also urge you, if you're just tuning in for the first week to this program and you like what you're seeing, please do sign up, subscribe, like us, whatever it is that you need to do, do it. We need you.
We need you. We really do. Like so, we're reaching out in a very, very calm demeanor right now in that sense.
It's quality. It's quality entertainment too. I mean, we're not giving you crap here. Let's be honest about it. All right.
Mm-hmm. We can give them crap if they want, right, Ange? But, if they don't want to subscribe or anything, we can throw the crap out there as good as anybody. But we'd rather throw the good stuff out there if we can. So help us.
A little later on, we do promise you we will do a Q&A this week. I know we missed it last week, but that's because we went into overtime and it was mayhem around here because apparently I forgot that we had another guest on, and I kind of screwed up the whole thing. So that will not happen. There will be no tomfoolery this evening.
You're allowed to make mistakes. You can't. You know what I mean? There's imperfection in all of us. You know that, right?
Yeah. Apparently not me. Apparently I'm not allowed that.
My. Well, that was a mistake right there that you just said. So there you go. See,
I just said apparently.
You just proved yourself.
According to the people who know.
According to Hoyle.
According to Hoyle. So without further ado, have we covered all of this stuff?
Todd Murray Monroe.
Toddy. Look at you.
That crap, but a lot of bullshit.
How you doing, man? Todd Monroe on there, by the way, you'll see him on the list there of people watching this evening. He is he's probably the very first full-time cameraman on the Fishing Canada show.
That's correct.
Right, who was designated just as the cameraman. And I remember interviewing Todd. He was fresh out of school. I don't even think he was old enough to drive yet. His mom probably drove him to the interview, but I asked him, can you do this and could you do that? And every single time, hey, we miss you too, buddy. Look at that head. Every single time I'd ask him, I'd say, Todd, you know about this camera? And he'd say, do I know about that camera? Like, he never lied to me, but he came back with, do I know about that camera?
Oh, good of those. Okay, that's good.
I remember I said, okay, that's great. And I'm checking this stuff out. And I said, Todd, do you know about lighting? Lighting? He said, that's my middle name. Do I know about lighting? In other words, he answered all the questions, probably got the job. He didn't have a stick of experience. It was the best.
Right out of school. He was here before I was here, actually, right? He was talking.
Yeah, he was there for you. What a wonderful guy and wonderful memories. And I think he was with us for, I don't know, Todd, maybe you'll correct us on this, but a long time, a decade.
And through all those outdoor journal years, too, he was there for a good chunk of that, too.
Yeah.
So we spent some time with Toddy. Down in the Bahamas, Todd? You remember the party night in Bahamas? I think you'll remember that one.
Let's get on with the show, shall we? Time for a little fish talk, kids.
Small baits, that's what I want to talk about today. Many times we favor the big bait, big fish theory, but there are times we've caught giant fish on small baits. Many times big bass, big trout, almost every species of fish are targeting things like crayfish, small minnows, young of the year minnows, and insects, and nothing replicates or duplicates those better than a small bait. Now, one of the keys when you're fishing small baits, you got to remember, because they lack size, they lack profile, and they lack noise, you've got to put it in front of a big fish's nose. But when you put it in front of their nose, it's like presenting them with a snack, like a candy bar or an ice cream cone, rather than a T-bone steak. So when conditions are tough, you try small baits, downsized to small baits, and you'll often catch the biggest fish of the year.
Hello, Gordy.
Pyzer. How are you?
Talking about feeding people crap.
Exactly.
Good one, buddy. I like that.
How are things up in Kenora?
It's absolutely gorgeous today. I had a 14-point buck. I got a crabapple tree about 30 feet away, but it was about a half hour ago. If he'd have stuck around, I'd have picked up the camera and turned it, and you'd have been able to see him.
Oh,
that would have been great, man.
That's a big animal. That's nice. You get some big bucks up there, don't you?
Some of the biggest in the world, Pete.
Yeah.
We're right where the Dakota deer meet with the boreal strain. And so we have the best of both possible worlds. And believe it or not, about 11 years ago, 12 years ago, the world record was shot over in Dryden, but it was shot at night and the guy poached it, and it was a non-resident. He beat himself across the border before the COs could get him. But M&R had it mounted. It would have been a new world record whitetail.
Really?
Wow, that's cool.
I had no idea.
Are you going to be doing some hunting this year, or?
Our season opened on Saturday, Ange, and we're really lucky being in Northwest Ontario. Our season runs now until December 15th.
Wow.
So we've got 2.5 months of gun season. And the best usually occurs about the third week of November to the middle of November. So I'll be thinking about it, but it conflicts with muskie season back.
Exactly.
And I don't have my dragger. He's down in college.
Your dragger. You can't do that work, eh, Gordy? That's enough of that.
I'm not going to do that. Are you crazy, Pete? I'm not going to drag a deer through the bush.
I have the same scenario. Right now I got like a lot of my good buddies. I got a couple of nephews now that are into duck hunting. A lot of these guys, and I used to duck hunt all the time. But I guess it's global warming. Whatever it is, the season has lasted that much longer into the fall of fishing season that I say, boys, I'd love to go hunting, but I love my fishing. And this is the end of the season. This is before everything stops, I got to get out. I got to stay with it. So it's hard for even myself to get out on a sport that I used to do every single Saturday of the duck hunting season. I did it all the time. Right. So it's tough.
Absolutely. It's the toughest. I did a blog a while ago, actually about a year ago, for Ontario tourism. And that's what I was talking about. The days need to be 24 hours long of daylight.
Exactly.
Because you can literally go duck hunting in the morning, go fishing during the day, and then maybe go sit on a bear stand or a deer stand or a moose stand at night. And
is there a better life than that right there? That would be it.
Not. Is it safe to say, that and we'll call it global warming because that's obviously what we're dealing with. But as these seasons change and they kind of roll from one season into another without any of those drastic, changes, is it safe to say that we're going to have to kind of reevaluate where our priorities are in terms of fishing or hunting, for that matter? I mean, fishing right now, if you look, I know you've got a great day going there. We have here too. I mean, if you look at it right now, you'd say, well, I'm going to be fishing for another 2 months, 3 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, who knows, right? The way it's looking.
I wished I could say that, but we will be ice fishing in the next 4 weeks.
You will.
Our traditional on the really small brook trout, speckled trout lakes, the tradition is between November the 11th and about the 17th. Now, most of the lakes will still be wide open. You can musky fish, whatever. But if you can be one of the first guys on those rainbow trout, speckled trout, splake lakes, and they'll only have 4 or 5 inches, but I guarantee between the November the 11th and 17th, I'll be ice fishing this year.
Wow. Cool. That's crazy.
All right, let's get to the subject at hand. Small baits, and as I was watching that wonderful little piece of video that you did, I was just screaming out. But it's all relative, isn't it, to what the actual bait is doing, the size wise, isn't it? We've always talked about making sure that your bait size matches the forage. So how can you say small baits?
Well, it's such a great question, Ange. I was out, I forget what it was, Wednesday or Thursday, and they're so bunched up right now. Now, our water temperature is 54 degrees, and, it's not going to be very long before we dip under 50. And here's the critical thing. And I really, really do believe in the fall right now. This is what guys and gals should keep in mind. The water temperature, a smallmouth bass functions best at 70, 72, 74 degrees. Walleyes, they function best probably around 67, 68 degrees. Well, we're going to be in the 40s not much longer from now. So all of a sudden, what they do, they'll fall down to the bottom. And they're cold-blooded animals, so they are the temperature of the water in which they swim. Right. And all of a sudden, their metabolism slows down. And that doesn't necessarily mean they want a small bait, but if you show them a big bait, they've now got 2-3 minutes to look it over. And you know what happens? So if we're swimming those big baits by them, they've got time to look at it, and they can detect that it's they can detect that it's a phony. This is the time of the year, the 4-inch tube jigs, the Ned rigs, those sorts of things. I know the boys from Outdoor Canada were out fishing last week using Ned rigs, and they just clobbered the smallmouth bass. So we're talking a little 1/32, 1/16 ounce jig with a little nub of a soft plastic on it. So it's not necessarily that they are preferring small baits, but you have a better advantage using them because they all of a sudden they're slowing up, they're looking at your bait. Ooh, wow, that moved kind of funny. And you can just do so many cool things with a small finesse type bait.
And I noticed the last 2 outings I've been on is that there's a lot of minnows swimming around, and there's a lot of baby perch swimming around, and even some blue, and they're all, where's the camera? They're tiny little guys. They're little weed. There's like, in an opening in a weed bed, you'll see 20 or 30 of these little minnows, and then all the bass are around, the bass in this case, and there's muskies around too. But every bit of bait out there is small. If you get a perch that bites your line, it's a big perch. So he's eating those minnows as well, right? So it seems like the bait is very small. Probably new of the year perch, maybe from the spring or whatever it is, but they're very small, bite-sized pieces for these fish to eat.
100%, Pete. A smallmouth bass, in order to survive this winter, right now has to be as big as my small finger. If it's not, and so that's the size of a smallmouth bass. Perch are even smaller than that. So the bait fish, that is what the predominant, what they're seeing. I'll tell you another little story. My buddy Dean, my used to be my tournament partner when we were fishing a lot of tournaments. So he's out, and we all know how smallmouth, when you hook a big smallmouth, it'll spit whatever it's got in its stomach out. And it just does that so it can fight much, much better. It can fight much, much better on an empty stomach, so it regurgitates. And here's all the bass coming underneath his bait, and they're eating everything that bass is spitting up. Crayfish, and they happen to be smelts, about 6-inch, 5-inch smelts, so about the size of our finger, right? So, a nice bite-sized silvery smelt. Dean was throwing a similar size fluke. So he's bringing one in, and his buddy throws underneath it. 6/8 smallmouth going crazy under the hooked bait, and they would not hit the fluke falling down. Anyway, it spit out about a 5-inch smelt. They went over, they picked it up. Dean looked at it, and the color, they matched the hatch, whatever. And he laid it on the gunnel. And the next fish they caught, they're bringing it in, and here's the fish swooping all under his bait again. Fire in a soft plastic, identical size. They would not hit it. He picked up the smelt, fired it in the water, and every fish raced in. And that's it, again. It you know what? We've said it so many times that you wonder, how did they know? They wouldn't touch a soft plastic 5-inch. You throw in a real smelt, and they were going crazy on it. But that's how good their sense of smell is, how good their sense of taste is, how good their eyesight is. I would bet if you threw in a 2 or 3-inch tube maybe and just let that tube spiral down, that was probably a better option.
Think about what you're saying, though, because it's not sight was not the principal sense that they were using then, because I'm assuming that regurgitated fish didn't really look much like it did an hour before it got eaten.
But but they could tell the difference, Sanj.
Something about it. There's whether it's I don't know. It's bizarre sounding, but it's true. Sometimes it just behooves us.
Well, you know what we do when we throw that follow-up bait in? We move it, we twitch it, we do everything we possibly can. And every fish that's around saw your bait. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret for the folks that are looking in right now, because we talk about using big baits. Almost don't want to share this. This is something we got on about 2 years ago.
Okay, hang on. Don't say. Okay, all you guys, could you just hang up there, get off the line?
Plug your ears.
I want to share this with you. Okay,
yes, right here.
If I hadn't seen this, I would never have believed it. So we're out perch fishing,
yellow perch in the wintertime. Ice cold water, the fish are lethargic, whatever. But we do know big baits attract big fish. We were actually fishing for lake trout, and I got a Williams spoon on. Williams spoon. Now, you look at that and you would say, there's no way on God's green earth a yellow perch is going to bite that. And you know, the honest truth is they didn't. But I could pull 100 yellow perch under my hole. And then as soon as I pull them under the hole, and now I've got them around, this is what I'm showing them. I'm showing them something like that. And here's my all-time favorite. These are my ice fishing custom willow spoons that I'll show. So here's the point. I pull them in with the big bait. They will not touch it. But honest truth, guys, if I could take you to my #1 perch spot on Lake of the Woods and I'd say, drill your hole here, and you would go, my God, look at all the perch on the sonar. If I go 20 feet, 40 feet away, and I start using this, I can pull every one of those fish away from under your hole. I will not catch them, but I'll mop up with these little tiny baits. Here's something even more significant. Trust me on this one, guys. Do not reel your bait up real quick, grab another line and drop it down. It takes too much time. It wastes time and it's fish confusing. So I drill 3 holes, put my sonar on the middle, 1 hole here, another hole here. And when I jig this one, so I'm jigging this to call them in. And as soon as they start coming in, I let it fall to the bottom and lift up this one. Oh my God, smack dab right in their face. This little tiny bait, and there's 100 perch. Where did that big minnow? Oh, there's a better meal.
All right, hang on. Time out. All of you sitting there watching this, I need Visa cards out, please. Okay, that stuff you don't get for free anyplace. So let's start charging. Do you understand what he just gave us there?
It is so
gold.
Awesome. I love that.
Gold.
It's like the hot girl. It's like the hot girl at the bar syndrome. She goes in there, she browses all the boys over, then all her friends get lucky that night. You know what I'm saying?
Get those Visa cards out, boys. Come on. Show some love.
Yeah, that is good. I like that.
You know what I love about that, Gord, is we'll take Lake Simcoe here locally, right, where you get a lot of pressure, and you see 100, 200 guys fishing the same point, the same underwater hump, the same whatever, and they're all vying for those same fish. But what a great pattern to go in there with. Start, dragging that thing down, that big, and draw all the perch away from everybody else, and then just pick them up like crazy.
I'll be totally honest. It was a total fluke how I got onto the pattern, because I was fishing for lake trout in 44, 46 feet of water. So I'm jigging away on one of my all-time favorites. All of a sudden, I'm looking on the sonar screen. What are all these damn fish coming under and I'm jigging, and then I can't catch them. And I'd feel a bump, and then another little bump. And then, so I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. So I go get a walleye perch out, and they're yellow, but they're huge. Like they're 13, 14 and a half inch yellow perch, big jumbos. And so I started playing with the technique. And I'll be honest, the first thing I did was I pulled them over with the big bait, reel up really, really fast, drop down, and they start to drift away. And you can't call them in with these little baits. So I picked up the big bait, and then I realized, don't reel it up. Drill another hole right beside it, let it fall to the bottom, put the rod on the ice, and now the only thing staring those fish in the face is a little bait. Ice cold water. Perch function best in the 60s, 70s. It's 39, 37 degrees where you're ice fishing. So show them something small. They can't get overly conditioned to it. It's that cashew or pistachio nut laying on the floor, and they just come in and they wail away on it. And honest truth, the minute they start going back to all those guys 100 feet away on Lake Simcoe, You just drop the other bait, start jigging the spoon
I
again,
love that.
and then go
I
in.
love that. That is so awesome.
The only problem with that, I can see what's going to happen here in about a month and a half's time out on those ice floes. Everybody's going to be doing the same thing. Those damn perch are going to be going everywhere. They're going to be confused.
I'm just hoping nobody from Kenora is watching in tonight.
You know something though, for the people watching, I mean, there's three guys on the screen here that are the perfect example. And what Gord said is that he fluked that pattern. So often that Ange and Gord and I are out fishing in a day, and all of a sudden, wow, what was that? Why did that happen? We just, maybe that's the difference between somebody that gets to sort of a professional status or not. I'm not sure how to even explain it, but the wheels start turning in our heads, and they start turning, and then all of a sudden, like Ange, he's notorious for bait tinkering. He'll sit there, and if something's not working, he go whoosh, the wheel starts going up. A lot of times it doesn't work what he comes up with. And then all of a sudden, it comes up with something that works. And it's like, whoa, who would have thought of that? Nobody. You know what I mean? It happens so often that we fluke onto these things and just work with it. So,
and the other thing, it doesn't have to happen every time, Pete. If you get one of those a year, you stuff that ace up your sleeve, and you do that over 8 or 10. All of a sudden you've got 8 or 10 aces up your sleeve. That no one else knows about.
That's great. And at the end of the day, isn't that really what a really good angler is all about? That versatility to be able to think problems through, not locked in to one particular presentation or size or color or notion or idea. And it's those experimental days that are golden, eh? And we talk about it all the time when we're shooting the TV program. One of the difficulties that we have is time. Time is always against us. It's our enemy. So we don't always have the time that we would love to have to experiment in some of these great places where we're fishing, right? We have to kind of go in with the proven and make sure that we get a show done. But man, those days where we're not confronted with that, they're magic. We do stuff that most of it, like Pete said, most of it we'll never see daylight. It's ridiculous. But I'll tell you, every once in a while, there's one that, whoa, who knew, right?
That's
the beauty of it.
Gordy, what about Chris Brabant's? He says if you have two holes, drop both. Just dead stick the smaller bait instead of having it on the bottom. Dead stick it sort of suspended, I'm assuming, and then bring him in with a spoon. Is that as effective, or do you leave it on the bottom for a reason?
No. What I do, Pete, is I'll have there's two phases when we go fishing. There's two phases. You need to attract the fish over to your bait, and then you need to do something to trigger it to bite. Some lures are phenomenal attracting baits, but you know what? They're not as good to the finishing off touches, the triggering aspect. And I'll be honest, I piece coming out in the Outdoor Canada in the winter edition. All of a sudden in the winter, ice fishing is the fastest growing sport or element of the sport. Yeah. And we've now got to start we've got to start doing what the open water anglers, and that is fine tuning, doing those sorts of things. So what I've discovered in the winter, there are very few baits, honest truth, very few baits that both attract and trigger at the same time. And it is far, far better to drill two holes. It's the only time of the year we're allowed to fish with two rods. So drill two side by side, drill a third one in the middle, put your sonar, the transducer down the middle, and we're talking only 12, 14 inches apart. So now if I'm fishing for walleyes, I'll use a rattle bait. I'll use a lipless crankbait and really rip it. If I'm on Lake Winnipeg, that was the deadliest pattern. We developed that close to 10 years ago, ripping baits, and they'd come in from 200 yards away and pow. Now on Lake Winnipeg, there's 5,000, 8,000 people on an average weekend. And now you can bring them in on that rattling bait, but they look at it, they circle around. So drop the rattling bait to the bottom, and all of a sudden you pull up a dead stick rod with a single 6-inch minnow tail hook that's wobbling away, and they go, oh my God, and over they go and eat it. And so you attract them with one bait, catch them with the other.
So many times.
play a part in that, Gord. I mean, even that big Williams spoon that you've got, I'll bet you when you're cranking that thing and jigging it hard, I'll bet you there's some sound coming from that spoon.
100%, Ange.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things we overlook, especially with smallmouth bass, but yellow perch, a little less, I think, with walleye, but I think smallmouth, maybe a bit largemouth, but smallmouth and yellow perch is curiosity. And how many times have you gone in a little too shallow onto a reef and you'll be on the electric trolley, boom, you'll hit the big motor on a rock. And so you pull the big motor up, turn around, and you catch a fish. And I'm sure banging that damn rock, I mean, we talk about being stealthy and coming in quiet, but I guarantee sometimes you hit that rock with your big motor and then turn around and fire a bait in and catch a fish. There was a reason.
I'll tell you where I first learned that lesson many years ago, fishing with Big Brother Reno. As Pete will attest, he was anything but stealthy. Okay?
Oh my God.
There was nothing stealthy about Reno's approach to fishing. A very good angler, a tremendously successful angler, but he was not into being quiet in his presentation. And 9 times out of 10, he'd be, zooming into some of these backwater shallow bays with the bass boat and, pull it off plane, sometimes hit the bottom, sometimes not. It didn't really matter, but he'd jump up to the front and smack open a couple of lids, throw down some stuff, and it's just mayhem. Throw out the first cast, he can get a fish on 9 times out of 10. And I'd say, well, how in the hell do you do that? And he used to tell me, because they heard me.
Yeah.
They came over because they heard me. He swore by it. That's never worked for me. But
I'm convinced smallmouth are curious. And I'm sure on the spoon, I'm sure jigging it, ripping it, making noise, making vibration, making it flash. Yeah. They go, what is that over there? Yeah. And they come and now they're not going to bite it.
No,
I do not ever expect them to bite it, but I guarantee I can pull them in.
So, and I want people to realize, hang on for Tim's thing, Mikey. I want to get one point across. Is like if Ange and I, we fish some tournaments together. Let's say we're fishing a tournament and we got a lot of times we're going to throw some Senkos in front of you here. So there's a 7-inch Senko. That is a giant Senko bait. But a lot of times we'll throw that either for a big bite or, or the other thing is to attract, like Gord said. If that fish doesn't eat that Senko, we'll throw a little wee tiny 4-inch in. You know what I mean? And then Angela will have this in her tractor. I will pull it out of the water real quick, but this one's already in there like that, and it's in the way. And I can almost guarantee you, if he's followed that big boy in, he's going to eat that little one. If he doesn't want to eat the big one, he's going to eat that little one. I have personally caught and seen more big, largemouth, and smallmouth caught on that 4-inch Senko than a 5 or a 6 or a 7 like this. So. Yeah. Big fish will eat small baits, like Gord's talking about. It's not just on ice fishing situations. It's in open water as well.
And Pete, how many times have you or Ange thrown a topwater bait, had a largemouth or a smallmouth roar up and hit it and go back down, and you leave the topwater right there, and the other guy throws a little bait right into the rings, lets it fall, and that fish is sitting there going, what is, and all of a sudden a little tube comes down, rushes over, and you pulled him in with one and you caught him on the other.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey guys, let's take some questions here. We got a bunch of them tonight, so let's slowly divest ourselves of them. Tim Sturgeon, as usual. Hi, Tim. Nice to have you joining us again. Is it okay to put a normal sonar transducer through the ice on a stick?
Yep. I'm not sure what a normal transducer means. I'm assuming maybe a summer, the one you would put on the back, the keel of your transom. But absolutely, it's better to have one of the round ones and put it on styrofoam or hang. But absolutely, no problem.
I just thought of something, Pete. Could you imagine this winter we put that Garmin unit on the ice, put it in perspective mode, do the old submarine search around the hole, find out where the fish are, and they're 100 feet over that way, and then start dropping that big spoon down and drag them all back over. It'll be crazy.
It would be fun to see.
That would be absolutely You know what? I never thought of that because everybody's using the Garmin forward view for
Right.
that. But you throw that down in the perspective mode, and all of a sudden you're getting a third of your whole fishing area and the spin around.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've had a chance to see this stuff or not, Gord, but my God, it is. I've told you, if there was anything that could be categorized as illegal, this new way of seeing underwater is insane. And for ice fishermen, it's a game changer. Totally. Game changer.
We got, as a matter of fact, I saw Mikey working on it today. Ange and I went out, just changing the subject a little bit, just to let the audience know that we're working on a video piece for the fishingcanada.com, and where we went out and shot some traditional forward view live scope, and then we flipped her over to this perspective mode, and there was about 30 salmon. You could see every one of them swimming around in a school. It was like, oh my God. That was
like
cool.
video.
It was crazy. So anyway, sorry about that.
Okay, back to the questions, Mikey. Fire them out there, buddy. Don't let us distract you, Mike. There we go. Hi, guys. Can you recommend a good handheld portable ice fishing sonar? I'm sure you can get 3 different answers, but Pete, we'll let you start on this one.
Garmin, you know what? I'm going to give me a second. You guys go ahead and give me a second, because Garmin's got a new one coming out, and I'm going to find out right now. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gord.
Well, I'm not sure. Handheld always implies to me very small, but I'm assuming
portable. With the pack, with the ice pack, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I use the Helix, but because for me, it's got both. I've got all my charts on it. I've got all my waypoints on it. I've got my running routes. I can switch from chart to sonar. I can flip to chart view, so I can see it as a chart. I still like many days the old flasher mode. I can go split screen. So for me, and I use the Helix Ice unit. It's phenomenal unit.
I had that debate with somebody the other day who is a traditionalist, old school, still likes the old flasher. And I said, come on. Okay, I can understand it maybe up till, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, but no, not anymore. We're talking real. The thing about using that type of old technology is that it's quicker. Right? It's instant, almost instant. Today, that's what we're dealing with anyways. Everything is instant.
Everything is. It's exactly what you do. So I'll go split screen. I go split screen, traditional 2D and chart. But I probably am on chart 75% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you got, Pete?
That new unit is a Striker Plus 4 ice fishing bundle. It's new to Garmin, and it's because the reason we're mentioning it is because it's a very good price point on it. The Striker models are not all the bells and whistles. They're just a really good, solid ice fishing unit that has got good portability to it. But the other thing that they're bringing out is that, and they didn't have before, is a 7-inch screen, and I think the 7-inch area is the ultra high definition. So they never used to have that. So on your regular transducers for your clear view and your side view, if you want to use that, but these transducers are that much better now. So they're just up in the game in that, and they're making a lot of them compatible with the live scope and Panoptics too.
So I was going to ask you, what would it take to hook one of those up with live scope?
As long as you have the Panoptics port on the back of your Garmin. You have to have that, which is a network port. So it's either called Panoptics or network. Either one of the two. And you only have to have one on there, and that goes in separate from your transducers. Your transducer goes in one, and your power goes in the other, and your Panoptics goes in another port on your Garmin. And as long as you have that port, you have that. Now it's a bigger ice fishing kit than normal people, because now you're bringing that black box, and you're bringing a battery that has to be able to run the fish finder and the black box. So, but as long as you have that in your mind, I'll tell you what, if you're bringing out a snow machine like Gord does or an ATV, that's not an issue carrying stuff out there anymore. You know what I mean? So
and not only that, but in terms of costs, I mean, think about it. This is your eyes underwater. The most valuable tool that you can have ice fishing, because the big problem with ice fishing is that you can't move around at will and just go find fish around a lake. You've got to do the best you can with what you got. Well, aren't your eyes underwater the most valuable thing? Wouldn't you spend the most money being able to see what's down below you and effectively fish it? So to me, you can rods, reels, line, terminal tackle, you can scrimp and save if you want on those items. But my opinion, sonar now, today, you can't afford to if you want to fish. You can't afford to.
I've said this many times. It only happened once or twice, but I pack everything out on the porch and then bring my snow machines and hook everything up. And there were 1 or 2 times I left my sonar sitting on the porch and drove. And I turned around one time when I was down almost on Sabascong Bay for black crappies. I turned around and drove 90 minutes back home rather than fish without my sonar.
And another thing people don't think of is that it's not an ice fishing sonar. You use it for ice fishing, but you can use it for open water fishing just as easily. If you have a small aluminum boat, you have a kayak, you have a canoe, you have a big boat. If you're running this live scope system that we run for the ice, you better take that out of your boat. You better rig it up somehow where you can bring it into your big boat and run it there too, because it's not just a winter thing. These things are these units work in water. Doesn't matter what time of year, they work in water. You have to just figure out how to rig them, maybe an extra transducer, something like that. No problem. Make them portable, right?
And you know the other thing, how we'll really spend the folks' money. And I'm not sponsored by any underwater camera company, but I hardly use an underwater camera in open season. I love an underwater camera in the winter. When you drop it down, if you folks just Google John White, Whyte on Lake Simcoe, and John's underwater photography on Lake Simcoe, the whitefish and lake trout and ling. But the cool thing about underwater cameras in a Lake Simcoe type ultra clear, it shows you, oh, that's the kind of structure that they're on. Oh, look at the boulders down here. Or if you drill a hole and there's a half a dozen boulders and you're jigging tight to bottom, oh my God, they can't see my bait. I'm too low. So you move 10 feet. But an underwater camera just is an amazing thing in the wintertime in a place like Lake Simcoe.
It's another tool. However, I have to disagree with you, and I hate disagreeing with the doc because people are going to be pissed off at me. But I got to tell you, with live scope, with what Pete and I were just talking about, and we use cameras too. You know that, Gordy. I think live scope is going to pretty much eliminate our use of real cameras because we have everything that a real camera has, except a couple of things that it doesn't have. And the biggest is the ability to see exactly the same 5 feet away from us as we can 100 feet away from us. And as you know, one of the problems with underwater cameras is visibility. Even when what is perceived to be clear water, 10, 15 feet, I won't even say 20 feet. Under 20 feet, you're okay. Anything beyond that is just black out there. Whereas with this scanning system that's out there now, we could see them 75, 80 feet, 100 feet away, exactly the same as we can 5 feet away. Yeah. So it's changed that whole thing, right? But anyways, regardless, we're way off topic. I'm just excited about this technology.
Just answer the question. That's all. That's all.
What else you got, Mikey? Go ahead, Gord.
Do you follow this logic for big winter muskies? If you could get a follow, will you downsize your bait on the next cast? Or would a different action bait be more important to follow up with? Big winter muskies. Now, is that whoever asked that question? Our muskie season ends on the end of November, so I'm not sure what winter muskies means. Is that open water in January, February? Or I'm
going to assume it's one of the ugly pike guys. So I'm going to assume it's just just before ice up. Let's just say with snow on the ground. November.
Yeah. I guided the vice president of the largest chapter of Muskies Inc. In the United States from the Madison, Wisconsin chapter. I guided him to he caught, the day he was out with me, caught the largest muskie he'd ever caught in his life. And his buddy had raised it on a much bigger bait. And what he did, he took a little, the Magnum shad wraps are only about 5-7 inches long. And he fired it right back in. And he hooked his buddy's fish that he had raised. So I do downsize, absolutely. In colder water, I do downsize. I'll tell you again, the honest truth, we went the very next day, went up the Winnipeg River, and we were fishing right at Menaki Lodge. And there's a rock pile out in front. And his buddy raised another giant on a bulldog, big bulldog. And Buddy from the Wisconsin chapter fired a smaller bait, and he matched the fish from the day before. So yes, different action. Boy, I'll tell you a little secret. I always, on my follow-up baits, on many of them, I almost always remove the back treble hook and put a little tiny Colorado blade. And there's something about when you fire that little follow-up bait with Colorado blade and you know there's a fish there. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There's something about a Colorado blade. Isn't it something?
And there's something about blades in general. When you think about how many walleyes have been caught on crawler harnesses, when you think that the best all-time selling bait of all times is a MEP spinner, and then you think about inline spinners for muskies, and the biggest, hottest thing that's happened in the last 20 years have been double 10s and double 12s and you go, what does every one of those baits have in common? It's got a blade.
Big old round blade on it, yeah. Another thing, going back to that muskie, the ugly pike, muskie's a great example because they're a follower. They really do. They're afraid of nothing. Follow, but largemouth, smallmouth, trout, a lot of fish will follow. I mean, when you think about it this way, look at it like the muskie guys, or what Gord is just saying. The fish didn't hit for a reason. Okay, there's something there that made that fish not bite. Otherwise, you'd have had that halfway to the boat. So why would you throw the same bait back at them, the same size? Try and think about it that way. Maybe downsize it a bit. Add that blade. Do something a little different when you're throwing back instead of throwing. Because if you throw that same bait back, that big pounder chunk of rubber that they're talking about, if he didn't like it the first time, he's not even going to look at it the second time.
No, I would never throw it back the second time, Pete. Never, ever. I mean, you hear two thumps on the boat, and that's Liam and I dropping our rods and picking up another one with a different bait on it. Because we now know he's there. I'm not showing them the same bait a second time.
Exactly, on all species too. You should use that as a nice rule of thumb. Just try something different and smaller. If you keep that rule of thumb, it'll work.
Make sure we get the expiry dates on those Visa cards, boys.
Yes, click them cards before all this stuff. Those expiry dates come through, please.
How do you feel about these glow stick baits for ice fishing, Gordy? I've used them with little success, says Rob Brown.
Okay, I was Rob. Rob, I agree with you 100%.
I'm glad you said that.
Because you know what, we've talked about this. You know, that's putting human qualities into the fish. They can't see my bait. I'll be fishing for crappies in 35 feet of water with 4 feet of ice and 2 feet of snow on. I'll guarantee down at 35 feet, it is darker than in a coal mine at midnight. And the minute I drop this little bait through the hole, and that happens to be,
Caster.
A cast master. I'll drop it before it clears the bottom of the hole. Those crappies are scooting up to hit it. They don't need glow sticks. They don't need rattles. They don't need. Now, humans, what we do is we say, geez, in a pitch dark night, I can see so much better with a glow stick. Well, these are crappies. These are walleyes. Walleyes see better in the dark than they do in the day. They don't need a glow stick. Now, there are times maybe when glow baits work, and I don't think it's necessarily that the fish can see them better. I think it's a different color. But 99 times out of 100, we do not need to make it easier for the fish to see our baits.
And once again, to follow that up, all we can go by is personal experience. Listen, we're not scientists. We're not clairvoyant. We're not making predictions out of anything other than experience. Because I can tell you right now, I will answer that question very simply. all the years that we have been experimenting with glow baits and flashlight recharging paint and all that stuff, and we've experimented as much as the next guy, I think we have had zero return. That I can tell you. No return at all. So I can say without a shadow of doubt that based on my experience with it, it's not the deal.
I like what Ann said too about, we're not scientists here. If you go on fishingcanada.com, my most recent blog, I have a piece about dirty water, about fishing mungy looking gross water. Okay. And I went in there with the mind frame, and I know if Gord and Ange had ever fished that stuff, they'd be the same way, is that, am I going to catch any fish here today? This is going to be tough. This is going to be real tough. I went in with a local professional, in my opinion, my good buddy Mike Burris, who has a place on that lake. And he said, trust me, we're going to catch these fish. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to use some noisy stuff, whatever. We used soft plastics. And I'm swear to God, if the visibility was more than a foot, there was no way it was more than a foot. And the weeds were so thick. Sometimes we couldn't drop a half-ounce bait. The half-ounce sinker would stop. It wouldn't even go through the weeds. That's how thick it was down. So it was black, thick weeds and mungy algae water. We slaughtered them. We pounded the largemouth. Now, I had to go with his technique. I watched him do it. I watched what he was doing. He had like 5 or 6 fish before I even had a thought in my head of catching one. And then all of a sudden, wow. So Mikey had figured that out. He's not a scientist. He figured out, he knew there was lots of fish in this area. And now he catches them at will. He says, Pete, I got 20, I got 30 yesterday. You know what I'm like? And you would look at that water and say, gross. I don't want to fish that.
But the reality, Pete, those fish have grown up in that lake for 10,000 years. They don't know what a clear lake is. If you put them in a clear lake, I'll give you a great example. When I was with M&R over in Lake Superior, when the lampreys first came through, we tried to rehabilitate Lake Superior with lake trout. We used our source fish were from a lake called Deoacera. And so when the lampreys hit bad, we cultured the lake trout from eggs from Lake Deoacera. They all died in Superior because in Deoacera, they eat a certain type of bait fish in a certain type of on Lake Superior. You got to go down 80, 90, 100 feet. And so you can't, that's playing with the genetics. Your fish, those bass, the only lake they know is dirty, dirty water.
Yeah.
So they don't need any help finding I have caught lake trout in the wintertime. And I'd watch them on my sonar chasing my bait, and I always take my bait away, and they come roaring up, hit the bait, and then I landed it, and its eyes were totally white, clouded over. It was blind in 2 eyes. And it chased it as well as any lake trout.
That is freaky. That is freaky.
But it's got to eat, right? Right. It has to eat.
And so it's got its sense of vibration, its sense of feel.
Everything.
We give fish human qualities. They need to see our bait, turn the lights on, add the rattles. As Ange says, it rarely works.
I've seen a couple of comments about the comment I just made about the fact that stuff doesn't work. And somebody say, oh, yeah, they work great. And you know what? I just finished posting a blog on fishingcanada.com about confidence, right? So I told you that every time I've been using baits that have this glow factor to them, I'm not successful. But what I didn't tell you is that I didn't use them with a whole lot of confidence. I kind of knew going in that, it's just an experiment. I know it's not going to work. This is not going to catch fish. It's not going to work, and it's not going to catch fish. Let me get it done. Let me get out of the water and go. Whereas somebody else, and I can't remember his name now on here, just, said, I use it all the time, and it's great. You know why? Because you fish it with confidence, which is the other factor that, we need to put into this. Confidence is so important. Everything we just talked about the last hour, if you don't use confidence, she's a tough one, Gordy.
She's a tough one.
George Cochran at the Bassmaster Classic. The day before the Classic, the media go out and they have their own little their Classic. And some guy, one of the journalists, came up to George. This was 20 years ago, the general, and said, "George, what should I do?" And he said, "Put on this bait, put on and go out and throw it here and retrieve it this way. I guarantee you're going to catch them." The journalist went out. He won the media classic. Came back in, and they're all assembled, and they're interviewing George Cochran, and the guy says, "George, I can't thank you enough. I did everything you said I should do." And one of the other journalists said, "George, what did you tell him?" And he goes, "I don't have a clue, but I knew he'd go out and do it, and he'd fish it with confidence and do well."
That's awesome.
It's true. Great story, man. I just wrote an article all about that. Confidence, confidence, confidence. And you can't replicate confidence. Confidence is something that each one of us has to develop from within. And when you get it, when you achieve that level of confidence, it's amazing what will work for you. Absolutely amazing.
And the other thing, not to discount the fella or the gal who's catching them on the glow baits, but if it's the only one you ever use, it's the only bait that's ever going to work. And if Pete comes or Ange, you go and you try your favorite, you might catch twice as many.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? People need to know that confidence, like you got to read Ange's blog, because it is huge. It's big in everything in this world, but in fishing, which is what us three guys do a lot, it is so key. It's huge.
Critical.
It really is. It really is. Any more, Mike?
Herbert says he almost lost his. I wonder what that means.
I almost lost mine.
Oh, he almost lost his confidence.
Oh, Herman. Okay, but Herman had been struggling like hell. I've been watching Herman online here on Facebook and here, and he's been working like 35 outings or something without a fish. And then I just saw up here, he just got 4 rainbows, and he just got another 5. So he finally has hit it. And I'll bet you, Herman, your confidence right now is ridiculous, isn't it? I'll bet you. It's like, oh my God, this is the game right here.
And you can't, as I wrote in the blog, you can't will yourself to be confident. It's impossible, no matter how many times. And I've tried it. Listen, through the years, I've tried everything. I'll go out to a fishery that I'm not overly confident in. I'll go out under conditions that I'm not particularly fond of. I go out there and I try and will my confidence. I try and make myself feel good about it. God, you can't do that. It doesn't work.
I'll tell you another story, and I was sitting with some of the best bass anglers in the world down in Alabama. Kelly Jordan, Takahiro Amori, Marty Stone, Gerald Swindell, and it was Gerald and Marty, and we were talking about confidence, and Marty said, when you're riding it high in a tournament, you go 80 miles down the lake, you pull into a bay, and you look around and you go, "Oh my God, there's nobody else here. I gotta run." And when you don't have confidence, you go into that exact same bay and you go, "Oh my God, there's nobody else here. I better leave."
That is so true. And I tell this story quite a bit about our good friend Roland Martin, who is probably, there's nobody more confident on this planet than Roland. Roland pretty much knows he's going to catch something at every cast. And you're not going to tell him any different, right? He used to tell me stories about having so much confidence in his ability, he wouldn't even pre-fish areas. He would just drive by them. He'd drive by, and at 80 miles per hour, he'd look and say, "Yep, that's it. I'm going in there and I'm going to slay them tomorrow morning." And he would.
Yep.
And he would. That's what confidence does, right? So it's huge. It's bigger than any favorite lure that you have. It's better than any presentation you could dream up. It's better than having Gordy in your boat fishing with you.
Oh, wait now.
All right.
I want Gordy. I'll throw all my confidence out the door if I can get Gordy guys in the boat right now. This weekend, Gordy, let's go.
I wish.
we've gotten completely off topic here.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on?
Is there any questions on small baits, which is Gord's
Right.
talk of his piece? Is there anything on that one? I see SOZ, somebody says gobbles. I know what that is on there. Anybody else knows what gobbles is? Anybody when you're thinking of questions? I don't think anybody would know this one. So,
by the way, I'd rather be fishing that said no. I use luminescent baits and they work. So good for you. Good for you. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, what the heck, right?
Gordy, what's in? Oh, here we go. Ice season. With ice season coming, what's Gord's top lake trout lure in Central Ontario?
I'll be honest. My top ice fishing bait. No matter where I go, first one that'll go first tube, but the first one, and I've got a piece coming out in the winter edition of Outdoor Canada magazine. It'll be out in about 4-6 weeks time. My top 7 ice fishing baits of all time. And for lake trout, white tube jig, white, silver, a white or silver tube, 4 inches, 3.5 or 4 inches. And the key thing about a tube jig is if you insert the head inside, the traditional inside, always leave about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. So you don't want to put your lead head, when you put it inside, don't put it right up to the nose. Always put a little bit of space there. And what happens, it falls in a spiral. Now you can't fish a tube jig without splicing a swivel. Really small. The best are the beaded swivels, the Acme beaded swivels. Put them about 12, 18 inches up, and then it totally takes the line twist out. Now, if you take that very same tube jig and put the tube through at the outside, right on the nose, if you will, of the bait, it now swims. It swims more like a swim bait. And believe it or not, we always test it almost every day. Some days they seem to want the spiral with the inside head, and many times, though, they want it on the outside. Al Lindner, Buddy Al, is the best tube jig ice lake trout angler on the planet. And Al used to come up and fish with me. And Al's secret was we would jig away, and you'll see the lake trout come flying in. And 9 times out of 10, if you slowly start taking it away, it just turns the fish on. They roar up and eat it. But Al would hold it perfectly still, and it was like having too many cups of coffee to drink in the morning. And all you'd see is those tentacles, and the tentacles barely move like this.
Yes.
And the lake trout, they almost rip the rod out of your hand. Honest truth. One day we took Al away back in, Al and Gary McAnally, the financial officer of Lindner Outdoors. There was 9 of us. We put 36 lake trout on the ice. Al put 16 of them on.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, 18. It was half the fish. And he does things with that tube jig just barely, the tentacles are doing that. And it's, you go, oh, God, a lake trout? And he fishes them like perch and like amazing to see. But a white tube jig followed the old days. It used to be a Williams spoon up. And the Williams is probably my number 2 today. But I always have a Williams spoon. And the spoon is always, always, always hammered, half gold, half silver. And nothing represents a Cisco more than that. But that white tube jig, white tubes have caught more lake trout in the winter in North America than every other bait combined.
Hey, Gord, on that note of the spiraling drop, would you recommend spinning over a bait casting reel on that one, or does it matter?
I never ever use the bait caster, Pete. Okay. 100% spinning. That's
free
not
fall, right? Just for that nice free fall. They can drop down at its own speed and etc.
And I'll lift it up. Again, it's called controlled slack. And it's a little detail, but folks have to learn it. It's not letting it free fall in and of itself. You have to follow it down. So it is free falling, but it's what we call controlled slack. So the minute you feel something different, you can set, and then you'll see but lake trout come in so quickly. and I love taking it away from them. I love making them chase, but Al's twiddle it in front of their nose, and he's amazing.
How's Al doing? Have you talked to him recently? Have you been in touch with him at all?
I have not, to be honest, for about the last 2 years, 3 years. I know he's not ice fishing anymore. He does go out to Lake Havasu and fish bass out on Havasu, and Ron heads south down to Florida. He's got a place in Florida, so I miss Al coming up ice fishing. He always came when I was with M&R. Our COs would be out, and it would be 38, 40 below. I kid you not. And they would say, I'd say, were you patrolling today? And they'd say, we saw one angler all day. And I knew it was Al.
Hardcore, man.
That's hardcore for sure.
The reason I asked is because I heard that he had a bit of a medical issue there a while ago. So I just didn't know how we, I guess I should reach out to him. But anyways,
that by the way, that technique of Gord getting the chasers, it works in open water too for lake trout. Believe it or not, it's just as good in open water as it does on the ice.
It seems like 100 years ago we were in northern, I want to say northern Manitoba,
Selwyn Lake, Saskatchewan.
Thank you. And we were using that technique at an incredible depth.
It was minimum 50. I think we went shallow and it was 50 feet because we were trolling at 100, sort of thing like that.
And we were using that, basically drift dragging these big tubes down 50 foot plus, along ridges and along. Oh my God, the lake trout were just annihilating them. It was crazy.
The way we learned this technique too is we were, if we were jigging the bait at all, we'd be just jigging it up off the bottom. So the guide that was with us in one of the boats, this local guide from the lodge, he had a 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce bucktail, white bucktail on it, and he had a piece of sucker belly on the back of that. So it was big and it was ugly, and it was but 1.5 ounces, and he had a bait caster. And I'll remember this the rest of my life. Push the button, 50 straight down, boom, hit the bottom, click, puts his rod on the gunnel like that. All the way up. I said, what the hell are you doing? Watch. And he just, the third rip off. All of a sudden, boom, there they are right there. Okay. For the next, I don't know how long, he proceeded to just lay a beating on these lake trout at 100-mile-an-hour reel in. It was ridiculous. He never jigged that jig once. He just highboarded it from bottom to top the whole time. Put his rod against the gunnel so that he could reel it faster. So he was just coming up. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Our good friend Ted Putnam's on with us. He tells us that Al is doing better. So he's in touch with him. Thanks, Teddy. Appreciate it, man.
And Mary was a little ill as well, his wife. And that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I think I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again. One of the very first times I'd set eyes on Al was during a tournament. I can't remember where. It doesn't matter where. But anyways, we were banging the hell out of weed beds and weed lines and flats and anything we could find. It was a largemouth bass tournament, and it was just one of those, awful, flat, calm, no wind, hot, like all those terrible things. And we were having marginal luck at best, and they were small, whatever we were catching. And all of a sudden, this boat comes zooming in and stops about, I would say maybe 100 feet, 150 feet, 200 feet at the most, down the point from where we were. And it's Al and Ted Capra.
Oh, yeah.
And the boat it was like poetry in motion, Gordy. And it played over in our minds just like a movie. This boat is coming along, and it's just like it knew exactly where to go. And we're talking about 30 years ago. The technology was not perfect. GPSs were not what they are. But this boat, it knew exactly where to go. And it came to a halt. The motor got turned off. The boat was still gliding. And as it's coming down, gliding and ever so slowly, these two anglers jump up to the front and they grab their rods. And I swear to God, I see this image now, and it was like poetry. And it just, and I see the line through the air, slow motion, plop, Got one. Got one. 2 fish in the boat and gone. He sat down and he just left. I was never so impressed in my life. Reno and I had been plugging away in that weed line for about a half a day with maybe 2 bites the whole time. They came in, they got their 2 fish. So at the end, he won the tournament. They won the tournament. And that was the first time I had a chance to talk to both of them, actually. And so we asked them, we say, hey, guys, you were over by Long Island, remember, in the middle of the day yesterday, and you came in, and like you just, the boat was still moving, for God's sakes. They caught their 2 fish and just continued off into the sunset. I said, what were you guys doing? That place was loaded with it. Yeah, but they weren't the right size. Meanwhile, we would have killed for those fish.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll tell you real quick, KBI Lindner story. So I'm fishing by myself coming down a point on an island. And unbeknownst to me, Jimmy and Al were coming down the other side. And then we got out to the point and we saw each other. And Al was up front and he loves throwing a crankbait. And I have said this before, you have never in your life seen anyone throw a crankbait and rip it faster and reel it faster. And it is beyond comprehension. And Jimmy was at the back dragging it too. So we worked our way out to the point, and Al said, God, come on, join us for dinner tonight. So I met up with them down at the Cornerstone for dinner, and we're having dinner. And I said, Al, you got to tell me the truth. Did you reel that crankbait for my benefit? And he said, nope, if they don't want to bite, I don't want to catch them.
That would be a perfect Lindner story. And it's a perfect story to end this segment on, my friend. Wow, what a great evening. I hope everybody enjoyed you as much as we did. If we didn't get to your questions, by the way, don't be discouraged. I understand we're going to be trying to deal with some of them at the end of the program as well, but we do have to cut you loose, buddy. There's other programming that has to go on, unfortunately. But
I can eat my dinner.
Yeah, you can eat your dinner. Right, exactly.
Have fun,
you, take care.
Take care, man.
Thanks, Gordy.
Wow.
You know what? It's like we need to start this at 8 a.m, go to 8 at night, and just all talk to Gord for for that whole time, because it's just so fascinating to both of us as much as the audience. Like it's awesome.
Let's change the pace a little bit. Let's go to this week's
Poll.
Thank you very much. And the question was, how long could you survive in
the wild?
Now, what this means, I don't know whether you understood it at the time or not. This means that if we were to airlift you and drop you out in the middle of an outback wilderness area with nothing, well, maybe we'll let you have a pocket knife or something. How long do you think you could survive? And it was a multiple choice questions in terms of time. 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month or more. What do you think?
I remember I said last week, I said a month, but I wonder if I could. I mean, our guest coming out, by the way, the show that she was on, they were allowed 10 items to go in with. So just to let you know on that. And you could choose your items. But even with 10 items, man, a month is a long time. Like when you think about it, Ange, I mean, we're city boys. I mean, we're even a small town, doesn't matter. We've never had to survive out there. I don't know if I could last a month.
By the way, Chris says 30 days. Wow.
Yeah. You see, I thought
okay.
I probably could. If you have to, you have to. Because 30 days is a lot different than, I think that contest was 100 days or something like that. So 100 days, there's no way I can do it. No way. Maybe.
Luke Gerard says 30 days with fishing gear.
Well, see, all these survivalists, they bring a fishing line and maybe a lure with them or something like that. But they definitely have fishing line with them on that. On all these survivalists, you know what I mean? So with that,
well, let's see what they said.
Let's see what they said. Whoa,
50%, 1 month or more. 50%, half of you think that we could airlift you and drop you out in the middle of nowhere and you could survive a month.
I like the 12% that said 1 day. That's it. That's 1 day. I'm out. That's it. I'm done. I like that.
Well, I think most people probably, that's pretty accurate. You know, if you haven't had any experience on surviving out there, it's a pretty daunting task. I mean, there's the food issue, there's the shelter issue, there's the confidence issue. There's So many issues.
Psychological issue. Just the first night alone out there in the bush. You know what I mean? Let's say you're in the Northwest Territories. She's mind-boggling.
Our next guest is no stranger to being out in the wild, as you just said. She recently was on a program on the History Channel, and it was all about survival. It's called Alone. I don't know whether you've had a chance to see the program. It's a fascinating show. She was on season 7, which was officially titled Alone $1 Million Challenge, because the winner was given $1 million.
See, that's too. You know what I mean? Like that, or if you were to tell our poll, we should have said that for $1 million, you'd have had 0 at one day. Then I'll guarantee you, because they'd all say, "I'm going to start after that for sure." So
a fascinating program, as I said before. But she's no stranger. Yes, it's a she. She's no stranger to wilderness and working and playing and surviving in the outdoors. In 2014, her and her husband Dave moved to a wilderness property outside of Espanola, Ontario. And who doesn't know Espanola?
Manitoulin Island there.
Yeah, baby.
There, kid.
Anyways, they had no road access, no utilities. The closest neighbor was 8 kilometers away. But they started a business. They stayed there and started something called Lure of the North, a small company that was made up of a family and a handful of seasonal helpers specializing in traditional winter travel, guided expeditions, summer guided canoe trips, and making traditional crafts, winter clothing, and that type of thing. Joining us now to the program, somebody that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. You will not believe her stories, is Kielyn Marrone. Did I pronounce that properly?
Good guess.
The most extreme alone challenge that's ever been done. Survive 100 days in the Arctic.
100 days? Nobody's done this.
And win $1 million.
This place will crush you.
With no shelter, no camera crews, no one to help. Alone premieres Thursday, June 11th at 10.
You can't tap out when there's $1 million on the line.
On History.
We've got snow again. My profession is a wilderness snowshoe guide. Day 15, my husband and I do remote wilderness adventures through minus 40-degree weather, snowstorms, slush. Everyone's ready for a knock 'em out easy day, 10K. I have the ability to overcome harsh environments. I'm still making my gill net, knowing what to expect in the Arctic. That's going to be a huge advantage. The only thing that would make me tap is an injury or starvation. My husband, Dave, he and I, we do everything together. We are best friends, business partners. $1 million is more than I could even imagine. Having that money means that we can take more time to live off the land and have the simple life.
We got this.
I want to show people how resilient women can be. This is an opportunity for me to prove to myself that I can do it without Dave. I have full confidence that I can make it until they come and get me on day 100 with $1 million.
Wow. Yeah, welcome to the program, Kielyn. Great to have you. Wow.
Likewise.
Did we pronounce your name right? Is it Kielyn first, and then how do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, it's Kielyn and Marrone, like Italian.
It is Marrone. You know, I knew that, but the reason I didn't use it is they're going to say, there goes that Italian guy again with the, the Italian pronunciations. I knew it was Marrone. Good on you. All right, Kielyn, let me first preface this interview by saying the difference between what you did and what, say, a program like Survivors and some of the other so-called survival programs is that you did it truly on your own, right? There was not a team there wasn't a crew of camera people and sound technicians and doctors and whatnot following you around. You were truly on your own, including the video documentation of the event. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We had we got dropped off by helicopter day one, and they said, good luck. And every 10 days or so, sometimes it was 20 days, they would come in, do a medical check, like they would weigh you, check your blood pressure, and then swap out your like media, your SD cards, and give you fresh camera batteries. And then they'd say, see you later. And you wouldn't know that they were coming back until they would text you on your satellite device that they were coming that day.
I was going to ask you, how did you have enough battery for, let's say, 20 days? Like, it got cold. I watched some of that stuff. It got cold there. There's no electricity, I'm assuming, right? So how do you have batteries to keep rolling these cameras that you have?
They give you like a huge Pelican case, like full of batteries. Like they probably give you 100 of those like big, camera batteries, and you just like every couple hours you'd be swapping them out, and you just have a bag that you throw all the dead ones in. And same with the memory cards. They gave you like books and books of SD cards, and so you swap it out every day. And yeah, eventually they started giving you like a fireproof case to put your memory cards in, because as I don't know if you've seen the show, but people have had fires in the past, and if you lose the footage, you don't have a TV show. So yeah, it was you're all by yourself, and it's all up to you to be responsible enough to document it.
I'll tell you why I was laughing a few moments ago. It reminded me of, and I know I shouldn't be saying this, but the hell with it. It's my show. I can say whatever I want. We worked with some Survivor winners, the Real Survivor series that started this whole craze. And we worked with a couple of them on a production that we were running a few years ago. And I gotta tell you, they were anything but survivors. I mean, a spider bite, and it was like, call in the medical team and get the helicopter in here to get us out.
Friggin' hangnail. Oh, I got a hangnail.
Oh my God, it was horrendous working with them. Great people, but no, not survivors. You, on the other hand, whoa. And to be finishing in the top 3 is bizarre. I mean, I was reading the whole thing, and the whole notion of any human being, doesn't matter, male, female, Canadian, non-Canadian, it doesn't matter, to spend the amount of time that you spent by yourself. Has anybody watching this spent more than a week alone in their house, at their cottage, anywhere? Have you spent a week by yourself?
Yeah,
never mind the wilderness. Never mind not having food. Never mind not having shelter. Never mind not having electricity. Never mind not having heat. Never mind any of those things. Try spending a week alone, period. And you'll find out just how incredible it is for this young lady to have done it in the wilderness by herself. Man, oh man, my hat's off to you. You're a winner. You're a winner.
No kidding. So, Kielyn, you're I'm assuming an Ontario girl your whole life. You're from Ontario now. Maybe I might not be right on that. You must have, give us your upbringing as an outdoors person. Start from the beginning. Have you always been an outdoors person or no?
Yeah, so my one half of the family were farmers on the Holland Marsh. Carrots, lettuce, onions. Packing lettuce from a very early age. And then on my other side, my mom's family grew up in Parry Sound. And so that's where I really got the lakes and the forest. And, my grandfather built his house, from the ground up and, on this beautiful wilderness property. And so I never went to like summer camp, but I would go there, and I was just in awe of him and his workshop and building with his hands and rolling in the dirt and that kind of thing. And, my grandmother had this nice big garden, and she'd want to bake a pie, so she'd send me down the dirt road collecting raspberries and stuff. So I had it in me. But I was an athlete growing up. I was a competitive gymnast for a lot of years, and then I switched to swimming after a bad back injury. And so I found kind of nature. It was always in my blood, but I kind of found it later in life. I started thinking about what I wanted to do as for a career, and I kind of thought sports therapy, but then I realized I didn't want to be in an office, and I started like brainstorming all the things that I wanted to do, and I realized it was all to do with the outdoors. And so I was like, okay, like I want to go to school for the outdoors. And so I moved to Sudbury and took the outdoor adventure leadership program there and at Laurentian. And then met my husband Dave, and it just sort of spiraled from there. And it was all about wilderness at that point.
By the way, whose idea was it to go for the $1 million? Yours or Dave's?
Actually, it was his.
Hey, honey, can you go try and make us $1 million, please? I'll hold the fort back here. Don't you worry about it.
He wanted to be on the show as well. He actually was the one that applied, and the production team saw that we were a couple, and so they asked if I would apply as well. And I think there's just like so many more men that apply and not as many women, that it was like, they want both. But
am I right? There was only 2 women out of the 10?
Yes. Yeah.
2 women out of the 10. And those 2 women, guys, sit up nice and straight for this one. Those 2 women ended up in the final 3. 2 women ended up in the final 3. It's 100% of the women ended up in the top 3. How do you like them apples?
Nice.
Good for you.
So there's gotta be a progression. Like you knew going in, you were going to be able to nail this down to maybe a certain amount of time or something. Like, 30 days is going to be easy. 60 days might be tough or whatever. What was your mind frame going into this, and what did you expect that you could make in 20 days?
I went in very humble, and a lot of people thought, because I had the winter experience, that I would just crush it and make it to the 100 days. But I went in because I had never done something like this before. I was always just like, we'll see, we'll see what happens, and I'm just gonna go day by day. Sorry, my phone is ringing.
I was going to say,
quite the ringtone there.
Hey, do me.
Yeah. So I didn't have any expectations of making it to 100 days, and so I was very much like, I'm just going to take it day by day. I did have some milestones in for the whole thing, and definitely the first week was a milestone, and then the first month was a milestone, and then I knew after 60 days that I was, no matter what I did after that, I would be really proud. I had a lot of pressure put on myself because Dave had also, my husband, tried out and made it to the top 20, that I put a lot of pressure on myself to do really well. So 60 days was kind of like I got to make it to 60, but at the same time, I was also very well aware that anything had happened, injury, illness, that
Crazy.
I was just thankful for every day that I completed.
Kielyn, in your opinion, now that you've had time to reflect on this whole experience, and I'm sure you're reliving it over and over and over and over again, you made it to 80 days, which none of us would ever even dream of ourselves doing that. What do you think was the most difficult part making it to 80 days? Was it physical or mental?
Well, in the end, it was the physical that took me out. I would say
mentally you were okay to go on?
Yeah, well, so I don't, if you watch the show, you would see that they really pegged me as an emotional character on the show. They made it, look like I was really struggling emotionally, and I was, like, I'm not gonna lie, it was excruciating. Hard on myself, and I missed my family greatly, but they were also a huge motivating factor for me to keep going, and I wasn't going to go home if I still had food. And I ultimately had food every single day. I never went to bed hungry. And I say hungry with quotation marks because I was eating rabbits all the way up, rabbits and squirrels and ptarmigan up to day 56 is when I caught my first fish. And so rabbits are so high in protein and so low in fat that your body is just consuming its own body fat reserves. So even though I didn't feel hungry, my body was like consuming itself. There's what's called rabbit starvation. And you could eat 3 rabbits, but you would only get out of it, 1,000 calories of like worthwhile nutrients. And so ultimately, at day 80, I still had 7 rabbits, a ptarmigan, and a squirrel in my shelter, but I couldn't stay out on the ice long enough to fish as long as I needed to get any sort of action. And so ultimately I couldn't keep my hands warm. I couldn't keep my feet warm. And I was just out of fat on my body. And that's what ended up taking me out.
If anybody hasn't seen it, you have to see Kielyn when she lands her first lake trout and then her next. If that has to be the funniest thing I have seen in the last 3 months of television, or maybe this whole year. Like she was ecstatic. She lands. I won't give too much away, but she lands this laker. She pulls it out like just horks it out of there like Ant and I were in a bass tournament. She's out of the camera shot. Then all of a sudden, you're dragging it on the ice with the line in its mouth, and she is doing this dance and freaking out. And it is so that is so genuinely cool television. I'm going to tell you that right now. I loved watching every second of that. I laughed so hard. I just laughed and just, my God, that is so cool. So good for you.
By the way, those of you who want to relive that experience with Kielyn, you can watch the episode. It's available on the internet now. A little bit of searching, actually, we can probably steer you in the right direction. It is really a great experience to watch.
The whole season is on YouTube now, and also if you're in the States, it's all of the prior seasons are on Netflix right now, and I think in the spring they're going to pick up our season, and I'm hoping that Netflix Canada picks it up as well.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I'll tell you, I watch on the global app, but I'll warn people there's a billion commercials during it. I mean, they have just you can find it elsewise. Try and find it elsewise.
It's a necessary evil, my friends.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
we can't have all this wonderful programming without somebody getting something from it. So
Netflix. That's what you got about that Netflix. You pay for it, kid. You can. You got it. You got it.
I wanted to ask you, Kielyn, I mean, food and water aside, because obviously those are the most essential things. What else is it about being out there alone in the wild that most people wouldn't even dream is problematic?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things. Like, I mean, firewood, for example, when you're living in one spot for 80 days and you get dropped off and there's not just like a standing deadwood bog around, like you have to walk for your firewood. And if you want to cook your food, you need to make sure that you've got that and to stay warm. So I ended up spending a lot of time and energy on just carrying firewood. I was kind of thankful that my trap line, I had over 250 rabbit snares out. And yeah. So I would kind of like spot standing deadwood throughout my trap line, cut it, and then I ended up making a loop and sort of gathering it on my way home. But that became a big time sink. Making sure you can go to the bathroom was like huge, because like some people either had terrible diarrhea because of their diet, and others had terrible constipation. And so you end up spending a lot of time and energy focused on your digestion. And pooping became an obsession for me. And you don't think about that at home. If you're like, oh, I haven't gone in a day or so, you just have some prunes and, the rest is good to go. But, you're
Great point. Because nobody would even think of that, right?
Exactly.
What would be the difficult thing for you when you go, well, nobody would think of that, but that's the stark reality.
It's the problem with a high protein diet too. That's the problem. It will constipate you. You know what I mean?
How about loneliness? Did you battle with loneliness, not seeing or talking to? Now, you did have, every 10 days, you did have some kind of contact with humans, but did you?
They were trained to not try. They were trying not to interfere with you. So like, I would be like trying to like give them hugs and talk to them, and like some of them, like I was able to break and I could get a hug out of them, but a lot of them were just like very business, let me take your pulse and step on the scale, please. But then they would do an interview with you, and so then they're like, how are you doing? And but no, absolutely, I for sure experienced loneliness. I'm very much like a family oriented, affectionate person, and so every morning I get my daily hug from Dave. I get my snuggles from Hank, my dog, and Lenny, my cat, and I call my mom when I'm making dinner. Like it's I mean, I don't know if you haven't seen the show. Like at one point, I'm like hugging a dead rabbit. I'm just like taking its paw and putting it up against my face because it was just some sort of contact. And
that's why I asked you that question. I could see it.
Yeah, you can see it.
Did you have one of those oh my God moments that you could share with us?
In what respect? There was probably a lot of them.
That the revelation, that moment where it was so clear to you, something all of a sudden became very clear that you couldn't see prior to experiencing this event.
Well, at one point, I think it was around day 65, I was really struggling with the smoke in my shelter. And I still to this day don't have an explanation for it. I just maybe think that there was like this low pressure system in the little valley that I was in that was like not helping the smoke get out of my shelter. And I was ready to go home, and I started taking down my snares because we got a really bad snow dump. And so rather than fixing every single one of my 250 snares, because we got like 8 inches of snow, I decided to start taking them down. And the reason I did that was, one, so that I didn't have to fix them all, but also I had a stockpile of rabbits, and I already was seeing that the rabbits were not providing me with the nutrients that I needed. It was going to be all about the lake trout. And so I wanted to spend as much time on fishing as I possibly could. So rather than spending 2.5 hours walking my trap line every day, it was just going to be firewood and fishing, and just, really try and get more fish. And that act of contemplating my death on the show, basically, like contemplating me leaving, really took a weight off of my shoulder. And I had this clarity and this like feeling of like I felt light. I felt clean. I felt light. And I was so proud and content at that time as to what I had accomplished that it felt like nothing at that point could get me down. And so that was that like sort of aha moment for me, that it was just like, I'm doing this. And, like
clarity, right? You finally saw that you were going to get to the finish line, right?
We just put a poll up, Kielyn, that to our audience over here, and just basically general people like fishing and all that stuff. We said, how long could they survive in the bush out on their own? And 50% of them said that it would be a month or more. What do you think? that I mean, the reality, the reality. And you don't have to worry about pointing fingers. It's not going to be at any, let's say it's me. How long can I survive out there in reality? Because I've never done it before or anything like that.
I'll tell you that the people I think that go in thinking that they're going to kill it are probably the people that will not. I think ego is a huge factor in knowing or being able to adapt in the wilderness, because that's the biggest thing out there, is being able to adapt and be flexible in what your plan was. If you go in with like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and you're watching the TV show and you say, why did they do that? That was dumb. You should have done this. Like, these are the types of things that can get you into trouble. And so every participant on that show is extremely talented, and only 4 people made it past day 50. Right. So I mean, these are people that were hand plucked for the experience, and so I think it's a lot easier to think that you'll do okay. But when we went in with no food, and we had 10 items, so we had the basic tools, but one of those items counts as a sleeping bag. And so you're getting very limited resources. And when you get a fishing kit, you get 200 yards of fishing line and 25 barbless hooks.
We're actually going to show this piece, so don't give it all away. We're going to show here in a second. We're going to show that whole list of things that you took in there with you, and the way you described them, because it was pretty fascinating. But before we do that, a lot of folks watching this want to know about fear. Everybody wants to know, was there that fear factor? Were you scared? Todd Monroe, our good friend Todd, wants to know, were you ever scared throughout the ordeal?
I was not scared from the moment that I landed. I was terrified before, wow. The 2 months leading up to the whole experience. And I think I was the most afraid because I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect. I was going to be alone the first time to survive and live off the land on my own, and I had never done that before. And so I was terrified beforehand, but as soon as I landed, it was game time. It was go time, and there was no time for fear.
Yeah, there's no rule.
So I wasn't afraid at all, actually. My entire journey out there, apart from one moment, and I was laying in my shelter. I was zipped up, locked into my sleeping bag because it was already winter, and must have been around the day 60 mark. And outside of my shelter, right outside, this terrifying scream, and it was like something I'd never heard before. It was not happy that I was there, and it was screaming at me. I mean, I don't want to embarrass myself by trying to replicate it, but Google what a wolverine sounds like when they're screaming, and that's what it was. And it was outside my shelter, and it was screaming.
Well, it'll lost me on that.
We were supposed to document everything, and at that point, the camera was across my shelter, and I was just like, I am not getting up. No way to turn.
Let's show the audience what you took in there with you with this little clip that we've got.
We are in the most beautiful place on earth. It's rugged, it's harsh. It's going to teach you really quick that you need to respect it. I'm doing this because I want to test myself and see what I can do. If you can handle yourself, you can handle anything. My name's Kielyn, and these are the 10 items I'm bringing with me to the Arctic. The first item that I'm bringing is my down sleeping bag. This is a -40 sleeping bag that will surely keep me nice and warm. The next item that I'm bringing is fishing line and 25 barbless hooks, hoping to catch a lot of fish and keep me fed. The next item I will be bringing is 80 meters of paracord. I have a assortment of colors and will be hopefully good for fishing lures and building my shelter. The next item I'll be bringing is snare wire. I'll be snaring rabbits and a few other game. Next item I'll be bringing is a multi-tool. This is going to be my knife replacement as well as a whole bunch of other uses. It has a little saw and a few other modifications I made, so this will come in handy. Next item is my axe. I'm not bringing a saw, so this tool will become an extension of my arm. It's going to chop all my firewood and build my shelter for me. The next item I'll be bringing is my ferro rod. Fire is life out there, and so I don't want to be without this. The next item I will be bringing is a gill net. I hand-tied this, and I'm hoping to catch a lot of fish out there, so this will be an indispensable tool for me. Next item I'll be bringing is a pot to cook all my food and purify my water. I went with this size because it's got a little bit more surface area for cooking things like big fish fillets and hopefully maybe a couple drumsticks. And the last item that I will be bringing is my bow and arrows. I'm hoping to get a lot of game, and this gives me an opportunity to get some big game. If the opportunity strikes, I want to be ready. These are my 10 items I'm bringing to the Arctic, and hopefully they serve me well. Wish me luck.
Fantastic.
So, the first question I got to ask you: did you hand select those items, or were you given those items?
No, yeah. So we hand pick those items. There's a list of maybe 40 things you can bring, but there's probably only 15 items really that are like contenders for what you would actually bring, because just things like a bar of soap or a comb or
toilet paper.
It's so things that like are more luxury items that wouldn't really be something that someone who's serious about it would choose.
So I looked at the list of all the competitors, and it's very similar, Angela. All of them are really close, and a lot of them, the pot, the fishing line, the snare wires, the axe, sleeping bag, paracord was huge, and all of them they're very similar. There's not one that's different.
Exactly.
I want to know who was the bleep who sent you guys out there with barbless hooks. That's what I want. Catch and release.
Yeah, I know.
That might be a local law. That might be Northwest Territories law, Great Slave Lake law. And that my question then also is that when did this start? When was your first day? What time of year?
September 18th.
So I'm wondering if lake trout season was like here. It's closed in the fall and then it opens up in the winter. I wonder if they actually allowed them to fish during closed season. I'm wondering about that.
What's the answer to that?
Yeah, so the barbless hook thing was definitely the Northwest Territories regulations. But yeah, I think I mean, I know a few people were using those hooks.
like surely to God, somebody could have talked to whoever, I don't know, the mayor, the premier, whoever is running, the president, say, hey, this is 100-day survival contest. Exception,
Great. Exactly. Wow. Yeah. On your list, what was the most essential? It ended up being the item of all items. Was there one?
I called my axe my MVT, my most valuable tool. I didn't bring a saw because I wanted to bring a gill net. Because my whole strategy was surrounded by fish. And unfortunately, my land was so shallow for the entire shoreline, and it went out for 100 feet. I would throw a line in and it would immediately get caught on all these like big boulders, and my gill net, like even though I would extend it way out, it would still just drag on the floor, and then the waves would just like thrash it around. And so I was hoping that my gill net was going to be my MVP, but my axe definitely was, because it cut all my firewood, made my shelter, dispatched animals.
And it was your fishing rod too.
Well, yeah.
It was, well, I made a spare handle on 20 because I wanted to make sure that if for some reason I broke my axe handle, that I would already have one seasoned and to be replaced. So yeah, it ended up being my jigging rod, and well.
Canoe Bound Adventures wants to know, does the backpack count as an item?
That's a good question. No, it did not. Everyone got one. Everyone got the same backpack, and we weren't supposed to use it as like an actual backpack. Right. And so I did end up using it for my fish mish on day 15 when I went to across my land. But that was, you're allowed to use it, but you're not like supposed to have, It's sort of one of those gray areas.
Yeah, one of those things like who's going to see it. But regardless, were you told at any time during the event, like you're in the top 10, or there's only 3 of you left? Hang in there. You're the last. Like, did you know any of this at all? Did anybody share that with you?
No, you definitely got this sense, like I think my land was the furthest away from from everyone and from the base camp, and so but you would like hear boats, and then when we switched to helicopters, you would hear helicopters, and like as the time went on, you heard them a lot less frequently. So, and I think just like based on the history of the show, I kind of had a ballpark I was going to be in the top 4. By day 60 is kind of what I was thinking. And so, it was pretty much spot on.
Any opportunity, and I'm not suggesting you did this, but I guess what I'm saying is this contest on the up and up? Is there any opportunity for any of you to do anything nefarious? Not that you did, not suggest, but along the way, was there anything that you looked at and said, I could probably do this and get a bit of an advantage? Or is this just completely on the up and up?
No, like I think one of the things that you get selected for, like you do this like massive psychology exam. And I think one of the things that they're looking for is honesty. And so, apart from your skill, they're selecting you also for being the type of person that follows rules, and like even when someone's not looking. And so there may have been opportunity to poach, certain animal that you weren't supposed to kill. Like for example, Amos had an issue with fox and wolves, and neither one of those were on the docket to hunt. And so he could have killed a wolf and somehow tried to hide it, but there were 2 game cameras set up facing your shelter, and they were motion detected, and so they were always on. And so I mean, and they searched you, what you were wearing, your bag. They inspected your gear for things like hiding, whatever. So I would say like apart from the honor system, they do some due diligence in like searching you, but a lot of it is just like, I mean, I'd say scare you. They put in a lot of fear into you, like if you cheat, you'll get erased from this show, and you could be sued up to whatever, $1 million. And so like they do warn you, like this is very serious. And in order to make the competition fair, for example, say someone did kill a wolf, and they would have to go to every participant that was still there and like give them an equal amount of food.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
Hey, what was your first meal once you were out of this whole thing? What did you just say? I am going to chow down on this right now. What did you do?
Well, I mean, it's sort of underwhelming because the first thing that I had was like bone broth, because they put you on like a re-feeding program to make sure you don't go into like a state of shock. So they start off really slowly. But once I kind of got into the more normal foods, like the first thing I wanted so badly was like a piece of chocolate. And oh man, that chocolate was so good. I couldn't believe it. I actually have a video of me eating my first chocolate. I haven't actually shared it yet, but I do want to.
Oh man.
But then the thing that I was craving most was like fruit, nuts, and fish. Like I just wanted more fish because that first lake trout that I caught, I could not believe, like after eating rabbits for 56 days, I couldn't believe the nourishment that fish provided for me. And so when I got home, I've got a friend who runs a rainbow trout fishery, and I was just like, how much for this many fish? And I just like wanted to eat fish like every day, all day. And he's like, I'm assuming you want like the full fish. I'm like, give me the head.
Everything. That was fins.
Yeah, exactly.
How many lake trout did you catch in that whole through that whole event?
Well, I caught 7, but I landed 4. Really? The barbless hooks caught me.
They got you. Yeah.
And the it's funny because usually when you're ice fishing, you just have this like tiny hole, right? Because you've got an auger. Well, I was using my axe, so my hole was quite big. But as time went on, like ice chips are forming all around the hole, right? And the ice is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And because it was so windy, there wasn't a lot of snow that would accumulate. So I'd have these like styrofoam blocks of snow, that I'd start piling over to keep the hole open. And I had made a dip net, but it was such a big dip net that I didn't even like register in my head. And it must have been like the starvation, just like putting 2 and 2 together. It took me losing my second fish, or actually my third fish, to be like, why didn't I use my dip net? But I think because like it was so shallow and you just wanted to get that fish up and out of the hole that like, I didn't even think, oh, my dip net could almost fit in the hole. So I started making my hole bigger and had my dip net, but it was too little too late. And that was like, I wish I had that mindset, being like, I should always have used that dip net, even though like, because you don't know with those barbless hooks, but.
Oh, right. It's crazy. Right. Sleep deprivation. Did you suffer from that at all, or was sleep pretty much on track?
In the end, I was having a hard time sleeping because I was getting bed sores quite badly. I had bed sores on my hips, my knees. If I would sleep on my side, my knees, I'd have to like pad my knees, my shoulder. I was even getting the like bed sores on my ear just from sleeping on my side. I would use the rabbit fur to pad in between my long johns, just to give me a little bit more padding. And so that was difficult. And then the sleep, in the end, what made me tap was like I couldn't keep my feet warm at night anymore. So I would have hot rocks, and I put them in my sleeping bag. But once those rocks were cold, then I went from putting my foot up to my chest, warming my foot with my hand, and by the time this foot was warm, my other foot would be cold. So I would just spend the whole night just like swapping back and forth, warming up my feet. And so I'd be in bed for 14, 15 hours, but I wouldn't really be sleeping.
Wow, that is insane. Would you do it again? Would you do it again?
Short answer is no. I don't need to do that again. I honored the experience and appreciate it so much, but also don't need to be alone for that long ever again.
Was there any other compensation for the people other than the $1 million? Was there any other compensation for that?
We got a stipend like per day, basically just to cover your wage at home. So, every day that you were out there, you got like $200, which was, a fair amount. And it was enough to just sort of keep you sending a paycheck home for the lost wages, that you'd have to replace. So, but not like prize.
Right.
I think most people watch for $200 to put themselves in the worst mental and physical pain possible. I think they'd all say no, thank you. Can you take us to the final moment, the end of day 79, when the stark realization, or maybe you didn't hit that wall, but that last moment where you knew you were going to have to tap out.
Yeah. It was quick, actually, because in my head, so the longest that anyone had gone before this season was 86 days, and that was in Patagonia.
Wow.
Where temperatures were just dropping below zero. So it was like nowhere near winter like we were experiencing it. And so I wanted to make it to day 87, just to like break that record.
Right.
I had enough food to do that. But there was some pretty turbulent weather throughout the week, and they kept trying to do a med check with me, but the weather kept turning, and then the helicopter had only like a 2-hour window that it could fly because it was getting too cold. They couldn't fly below -40, and they couldn't fly in any, they needed clear skies, and so they kept pushing back the med check. And on day 79, they were supposed to do a med check, and I was going to announce to them saying, next week's med check, I'm going home. But then that med check never happened. And so it was day 80 that they were scheduled to do a med check. And we have this texting device. We have to do a check-in in the morning, a check-in at night. And they said, I said, are you coming tomorrow? And they said, weather permitting. And it was that moment where I was just like, I'm done. Like, I do not want to bear another storm out here. Like, I want to be in a warm place with doors and windows and, heat all around me. Like, my hands were in the fire and the tops of my hands were frozen. Like, it was like,
God.
I just, I was so hunched over the fire. And that moment when I stepped in, it was just a trailer. Like, we went to this lodge that was not really winter weatherized. And so it was this heated trailer. And I remember the first time feeling heat all around my body and starting to peel off the layers. And it was such a weird feeling, but I was so thankful. The windows were completely frosted up, and and the sun was just setting and keep in mind, I hadn't seen the sun for a month. The whole month of November, I didn't see the sun because there was this localized cloud. So my bay froze, but the rest of the big water was still open, and it was creating this localized cloud. And so the sun was so low in the horizon that it would come up over this mountain and then just stay in the cloud the whole day. And then I would get to see it set. And so that lack of vitamin D, you're starving, you're frozen, it was time.
Wow. I think you lost the two of us with no coffee. That would have been our threshold. Okay, we were Kielyn, I think I would be lying if I didn't tell you I have a new superhero now. And that's you. absolutely amazing story, great achievement, one that very few people on this planet will think about that. Very few people on this planet will ever be able to say they did. So you're Canada's new superhero without question. And judging by the comments from our audience, they're all saying the same thing. Absolutely outstanding work. Let's stay in touch. I think we've got a lot of things that we didn't get to talk about tonight. We do have to get running here, but I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for making time to come on this program. I know everybody absolutely loved it.
This was an awesome get together for sure. I loved it. It was really good.
And for those of you who want more information, I'm sure they can get in contact with you, emails and stuff. We'll put them up as well. Go to the YouTube channel that's got the program and watch the whole series, because it's one thing to sit here and listen to her. It's another thing to watch the episodes, and then you can kind of connect the dots and relate to what she was thinking at the time that those events actually took place. So I think it's a must watch for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling that if something's coming up again, you might jump. I really think I have that feeling.
If they do a couples show, Dave and I will be on it for sure.
Hey, there you go. That'd be a good one. That's a great premise, right? Wow.
Kielyn, thank you very much for joining us once again. We absolutely appreciate it. Congratulations, you're Canada's winner. Okay,
yeah,
no doubt about it.
For sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. You take care of yourself. Kielyn Marrone. There, I pronounced it the way it should be pronounced. She was Canada's, the only Canadian, by the way, the only Canadian contestant. There were 2 women and 8 gentlemen that started the trek on September 18th, 2019. And she was number 3 and lasted 80 days. Now, I know a lot of you said 30 days, no problem. 50% of you said you'd last 30 days. I can tell you right now, I don't think I would last, even with all the tools that she had. I think it would be hard for me to honestly, to make it to 2 weeks.
Couple weeks, yeah.
2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other items that I would miss, and food and beverage and stuff, aside. My biggest problem is contact with other people. Right. And that would be really hard for everybody. I think everybody watching this program would have an amazing.
The other thing that you don't really realize is you get that bow and arrow there and you're shooting your game. But like she says, if it's just a low fat diet that you're on, you don't realize that. You think I can live on rabbit for 100 days. You can't. You know what I mean? You don't think stuff like that you don't think about. You just can't do it. There's no fat on those little guys, So, yeah, pretty cool. Really an eye opener for sure. For sure. And it was pretty neat seeing the walks of life that she was against. So there was a hunting guide in there. There's a traditional bowyer, an archery dude expert, a tool maker, a sniper and survival skills instructor, a primitive skills instructor, ancestral living skills instructor, homesteader. She was a winter wilderness expedition operator and a biologist. And so there's a variety, but all those occupations are very well suited for something like this. I'm not sure about the biologist, but even that probably the biologist would be too. But think about a sniper. Well, that guy has made his bread and butter his whole life on sniping and
yeah, but it's a different ball game, right?
I know. He doesn't have a gun there, but crazy. The walks of life that went into that. You didn't see any banker in that list, did you?
You just offended all the bankers we got out there watching.
What's that?
You just offended all the bankers that we've got watching.
They know they wouldn't last 3 days. They all admit to it.
How about cameramen? Do you think cameramen would, like a guy like Todd Monroe, would have lasted?
I'd give Todd about a week and a half. All
right, there you go, Todd. Little vote of confidence from the old crew.
Yeah, and if it was Todd and I out there, he'd probably kill me and cannibalize me and eat me, and then he'd live forever. There you go, Tato.
I don't understand the barbless hook thing.
You got to go by the laws, right? So somebody is going to go on their keyboard. You can't use barblet hooks, and that it's the typical bullshit you're going to see, and they're just going to stay by. And you know what? It might make just an extra challenge for them. They might say, you know what? That's more challenging than
Obviously, she lost 50% of her opportunities, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It lasted longer if she had more Lakers in the ice box for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But
well, boys and girls,
another couple hours gone. Woo!
That was insanity. We were going to have our Yucatan Peninsula episode that we shot. Speaking about survival in the wilderness, that we shot on Outdoor Journal Television several years ago, but we're going to obviously save that until next week. We ran into a bit of overtime. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. That just gives us more stuff to talk about next week. Not that we don't have a ton of stuff already. Q&A. Got some Q&A. We got. Oh, there you go. Before we forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. Don't make me beg. I look awful begging. I have to beg every day here at work.
Why? For what?
I have to beg people to do their job. I have to beg people to come in. I have to beg.
Do you?
Constantly.
I bet everybody on the list feels very bad for you.
And I don't do well at groveling, so don't make me beg, please.
You do pretty good at bullshitting. I'll tell you that.
I am too. Thank you. I don't mind that.
Like right now, trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes.
I wear that as a badge of honor, and I appreciate the positive commentary, my friend.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's the one.
All right. Mike just interrupted us right there.
Let's get to the Q&A.
We gave him lots in that Gord Pyzer piece. If there's any other questions, I'd be real surprised. I think everybody's being questioned out here, but you never know. There might be something along the lines. We can get a few in here before we go home for sure. You know what I mean?
Stump the chimps or whatever. What was that?
Stump the chump. Stump the chump.
Chump. There you go.
Yeah. Chumps. Do you want, Tony? Do you want some cheese with that wine?
Yes,
don't you rock, brother.
Yes, please. I don't mind.
That is so awesome.
Best way to start a hole in the ice is to have a nice axe like Kielyn did.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the best way. I mean, if you're going to take a tool, I wonder how many people didn't even think of that, and they brought the saw instead of the axe, not even thinking of cutting holes through the ice, right?
Well, they all picked fish hooks in line. So they all knew, and they all knew they were going into the winter. I mean, they started at the end of September up there in Northwest Territories. You're going to be into ice for sure. So they had to think about ice for sure and fishing.
And I wonder how many thought that far through it that an axe was really the only effective way of getting through that ice.
Yeah,
right? You need the axe to at least initiate that hole, right? Even if you are going to use a saw, which would be okay, but you need to have an opening in that ice to start with. Right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, in Tim's case, if you're talking thick ice, a really good sharp auger is still the way to go.
Oh, for sure.
When he's talking normal ice fishing, if it's thin ice, a good spud is a great tool too to get through real quick. You don't need to bring an auger there. You can spud a hole through as long as it's not too thick. Because then once it gets too thick, then you're really working hard. And all that stuff.
Yeah, I hope you didn't think I meant an axe for everyday ice fishing.
Yeah. Well, you never know with Tim. Best way to start a hole in the ice. You never know what he's if he's current or if he's in the survival mode. You never know, right? The Canoe Hound Adventures there. Ultimately, an axe is a better tool to have because it's more multi-purpose than a saw. It only serves one or two uses. Absolutely, for sure.
Here.
Okay, so no more commercials, huh? Oh.
Do you guys ever ice fish in the Thousand Islands around Gananoque, Ontario? Never tried it.
Never ice fished. Done a lot of open water fishing around there. Ange and I both have a lot of it, but never tried the ice fishing in that area.
I wonder how. I mean, it would seem to me that you'd really have to pick your spots, areas, and time to fish that area because you've got a lot of moving water, right?
Yeah, current would be an issue, but there's lots of still. I mean, remember our buddy? I think Ryan is watching. Ryan Flero from Lancaster. There's lots of current out there, but his ice is over quite a bit of ice on the St. Lawrence, lots of current. So, I mean, in the back bays, in the shallows, and in those little stretches of lack of current, that will definitely freeze over. It takes a lot not to freeze water. It takes a good, you know what I mean, and Canadian winters, you have to have a pretty strongish ongoing current in order to not to freeze it. You know what I mean? So
it's an interesting question there by I'd rather be fishing, Bob. Gas, I think we've answered this before, gas or battery electric for an ice auger. Ecological reasons aside, the environment aside, my preference is gas. I don't know how you feel about it.
I think the new modern day battery augers are very. I don't have one, but I've heard really great reports about them now. That you can get lots of holes. They're powerful and efficient. So if they're as good as everybody says, I'd go to one. I'd go to an electric in a heartbeat.
I'd be concerned about temperature, though. We know how battery power consumes itself quickly. The colder when that temperature drops, batteries don't last anywhere near as long as they do during that optimum operating temperature, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they've changed that, if batteries can operate at minus 30, minus 40, it would make sense not to have that.
For sure. For sure.
But there ain't nothing broke about a gas-powered auger, 10-inch gas-powered or 8-inch gas-powered auger. Nothing wrong with that.
Always remember to turn that little exhaust away from you instead of towards you, because it doesn't do a very nice job on your nice survival suit. Leaves you a nice big black patch, by the way.
Especially if you have to wear that to the local bar that night.
Which you probably will be. If you're out there ice fishing, you want to have a drink.
Deanna Sanders wants to know if we've ever fished the Sioux Lookout area, and if so, which lake? Okay, what I can tell you personally, I don't know whether you were on this shoot. Years ago, we fished out of White Birch Lodge in the Sioux Lookout area, and we were crappie fishing. Glenn Carr and I, a name from the past.
Yeah,
I think it was Dog Lake. I want to say Dog Lake for some reason. Not sure, but it was pretty cool. It was great crappie fishing. That was years ago. So
did you say Sioux Lookout or Sioux? Where was that?
Sioux Lookout.
Sioux Lookout area.
Yeah.
Is that where Anderson's is either or no? Remember Anderson's Lodge is either Sioux Narrows or Sioux Lookout area.
I think that's Sioux Narrows.
Okay. I'm not sure if it did. Yeah. If it's Sioux Lookout, then or wherever she's talking about, then obviously right there, Lac Sewell is amazing, right? There's tons of water in that whole area, that Northwest Ontario area. It's ridiculous how many lakes and rivers and fishable waters there are in that. It's clustered.
Out of all those lakes that we have fished in that area, and I'm talking the Sioux Narrows area now, I mean, Lac Sewell aside, which is your favorite? Or do you recall having a favorite?
You know what? I'm a huge fan of Lake of the Woods. I really am a huge fan of Lake of the Woods, and it all comes down to the amount of species of fish it has. It's got big ones of everything, but it's got more species than any other lake in the whole area, combined. It's a huge body of water, but I have to say Lake of the Woods, to me, Lake of the Woods, Ontario, Canada, is maybe the best fishing lake in the world. Okay, I haven't fished every lake in the world, but I study fishing a lot. I read, I watch TV, et cetera, et cetera. If you can find me a better all-round lake than Lake of the Woods, I'd like to see it. I really would.
Sounds like Deanna's got a better lake than that, or maybe it was Lake of the Woods that she was on. She just came back from a 10-day trip up in that neck of the woods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A great 10-day trip.
Probably pretty good. Yeah. Nice.
You can't beat that part of Ontario. Let's be honest about it.
Crazy. There's one question there for Horwood. Horwood Lake's good too, but it's not. I mean, it's a great lake, but it's certainly not a Lake of the Woods. It doesn't even contend against that one in that sense.
Yeah.
Anything else, Timmy Sturgeon? Timmy.
Crow Lake near Marmora, absolutely. Winter or summer? I fished it in the summer.
So have I, yeah.
Not winter. Is it open? Maybe it is. I don't even know. I guess
So I don't know. It's got crappie. It's got big crappies in it. I know that. So
Yeah.
it's got pike in it. So I'm not sure what the exact zone it's in or whatever, but I would assume that pike are.
it's got muskie and it's got largemouth.
Oh yeah, it's got both
Oh.
that species. Yeah.
I think it was you and I. Didn't we fish it one time? We were fishing a weed bed out in the middle of it for largemouth. No,
Could have been. I mean, we fished so many areas. I know they fish the river more than I fished the lake, the Crow River, and all that. So it's good. It gets beat up pretty good. It's a very popular lake and river system. That's all I can say. It's still got good fishing in it, but it does have its pressure on the Crow. So
John Alexander Curran wants to know: have you ever made an episode with a guest who has a disability? I was born with arthritis and have my troubles getting into boats. Curious about assistive devices for handicapped fishermen, folks. We've done a few. One that comes to mind, and not only because, I mean, maybe it's the most obvious. We did a couple of episodes with the Canadian Institute for the Blind out of Ottawa years ago, and we had we were with them for I think a week, 7 days, and we took so many folks out who didn't have the ability to see what they were doing. And I got to tell you, I will never forget watching a blind kid or an adult with impaired vision catching a fish. In a lot of cases, their first fish. And it was nothing short of, I mean, the emotions that were just floating around in that boat were just, whoa. They were made your head spin. It was so great.
Awesome. That would be so awesome.
But we've done, there was a group out of Peterborough. I hope she's not watching because she'll hate me if I forget. We run into them at the Sportsman Show each year.
Right.
That family that has the pontoon boat.
Family, right? Yeah. And it's out of Bewdley. They have their pontoon boat, I think, out of Bewdley, based out of Bewdley. I can't remember the name of it either. We've seen many times. But yeah.
Great family, and that's all they do. They go around and help folks with various physical handicaps to experience fishing. So
yeah, and they're in the hockey too. It's a sledge hockey or something like that. They're very much into that too. Yeah. Very, very devoted family to the handicaps for sure, and adding fishing in there for sure.
All righty.
Can I go home yet?
Well, no, you still owe the company another hour, according to the time card.
Oh.
According to coming in today at noon. So don't go rushing out. We're here till 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, okay. I got you. Noon to it's 8.5 hours so far. I'm gonna book.
On the other hand, I'm going home because I did a full day today. Okay.
Get that. Who's that guy that brought the wine and cheese thing? You get him out there again. He's whining again. He's gonna be drunk on wine.
Did you partake in a little bit of wine this weekend, by the way? Do you think?
I had a little bit. I'm gonna give everybody a little tip here, non-fishing.
Perfect.
There's a Cab Sav out there, a red Cab Sav, that you would look at the label and you'd say, that's not good. It's called Big Bill. You want to try a wine that's really good? Big Bill. And it's got a horrible, not a horrible label on it, but it's just you look at that and you say, I'm having a Big Bill. It's either a beer or a Big Bill. You know what I mean?
Bring on the Big Bill.
Bring on the Big Bill. And if you don't like it, you can wash it down with a beer afterwards. There you go. There's my tip of the day for you. Yeah, you're right, Ken. Pete wants his beer. You're right about that, brother. Gotta like the beer, huh?
Anyways, we won't get into that. Super new kayak fishing channel. Wow. Have you guys tried kayak fishing? Gaining popularity. We fish religiously here in the Ottawa area out of our kayaks. Boy, do you ever.
Sure. For sure. It's very popular.
Huge.
Yeah. Tournaments. They're having tournaments with it. It's really catching on. I don't know if I've ever fished. I've fished out of canoes and I've been in kayaks for kayak rides, but I don't know if I've ever fished out of a kayak or not.
I personally have not. Would love to at some point. I've got another 40, 50 years yet to experience. I can't experience everything in the first 60 some odd years. You gotta save some for the last 60, and that's what I'm doing. But it looks great. It looks great. a lot of people that we know are jumping on board with that, and they're so well outfitted now that the fishing kayaks. Oh my God!
God,
You
don't
know?
have to paddle. Use your feet. They're just ripping along there. They're trying to get a fish finder on there. It's a good setup for sure. What they have going on is a good setup. You can stand up on a lot of these things. They're that sturdy. I see people standing and fishing on them. It's like, whoa. So they're really getting advanced for sure. Gotta try it. In the next
All right,
years,
that are it. We need to get a move on. I want to remind everybody. First of all, thank you very much for joining us once again. For those of you who popped in, tuned in. I don't know. We always run into overtime, which may be a good thing, maybe not. I don't know yet. But as long as we have good, interesting stuff, we will continue doing that. Like everybody to please subscribe to all of our social media so you can stay updated on all the things Fishing Canada. We've got some great, exciting things coming up. I know a lot of you were asking earlier on about what other prizes are you going to be giving away? Are you going to be giving Garmin stuff away? We're working on a relationship with a retailer.
Oh my, Angelo.
I don't think I breached my confidentiality agreement that I signed. No. I said a retailer. I didn't say which one. Didn't even.
There's lots of retailers out there, and you didn't say anything wrong. You just
retailers. I mean, there's all kinds of retailers. There's automotive retailers. There's fishing retailers. There's clothing retailers. Could be a client. Anyways, we're working with a retailer to come on board as part of the contest, and if they do, and by the way, we're going to know in the next week or two.
All right.
Prizes will be outstanding. Is all I can say at this point. And if we don't, which could happen too, don't matter. We got all kinds of prizes lined up already that would blow your mind and curl your toes, as they say. So there.
Like the Iron Sheik.
Pardon?
Like the Iron Sheik. Curl your toes. Remember the shoes he used to wear?
Iron Sheik. Wow. You just gave me like flashback. The Iron Sheik.
Do I say, do I spit on you? Man, he was the best.
We need to get out of here. Obviously, we're starting to hallucinate.
Make sure you hit the website. Angelo's Confidence blog is up there. I just put a blog up, Clearwater versus Dirty Water blog. Two very interesting pieces that really actually work hand in hand. A new poll will be going up. Ryan Gregory is going to be coming up with Fishing the Arctic up in the same lake, Great Slave Lake. He fishes a lot up there. He's got some great fishing sequences up there. So lots of stuff on the website you can check out too, people.
Any hints as to who's coming on next week? Is there, or what the poll is going to be?
Yeah, the poll. Do you want to know what the poll is going to be?
Well, I don't know if it's possible to know. I don't know. If
it says on my paper here, have you ever taken a trip to a fishing lodge? As simple as that. It'd be nice to know how many people have gone to a fishing lodge or
not. I love that one.
Good.
That means our next week's guest is somehow tied to that, because that's kind of the theme I've been noticing. Or have you not noticed the last couple of weeks that the poll was tied into the subject matter? Huh?
Nothing.
You not noticed?
Nope. I don't know.
I have, on the other hand. See, that's the difference between you and I. I'm thinking at a much higher level.
There's no doubt about that. Much higher level. How much cannabis or cocaine have you been to be that high? To be honest.
Oh, that's not funny.
I didn't say it as funny. I was serious.
Why did I take that?
You laughed.
Yeah, all right. You're right. All right. That's it, folks. We want to thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Don't forget, fishingcanada.com. Go to the contest section, enter the boat motor contest, Princecraft boat and an outboard motor by Mercury on a trailer, by the way, custom trailer. That'll be given away the 15th of December. You need to get in there every day because there's a lot of folks who are in there. Believe me, big time. It's free of charge. Just get it in there every 24 hours if you can. And also while you're there, why not win a 2.5 Merc for your canoe or kayak or I don't know, whatever you like. Have a good evening, folks. Peter, we'll talk to you next week, my friend. Have a good one. Ciao.
Bye, people.
You know you got a fishing problem when you get out of a perfectly good warm bed to come out here and stripers bass fishing.
Those are powerful animals, aren't they?
The only way you can describe this thing is drop shotting on steroids.
I've never seen anything rip right off a reel like that in my life.
And so they get like, how much bigger?
Twice the size of that.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm gonna kill you.
Wow, is that exciting or is that exciting?